Close then.
Hello, Aldwyn Altuney here, and it's fantastic to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us on Media Queen TV. We have a beautiful special guest today called Jacqx Melilli, and we are going to be talking about how to write your memoir today. Now, we know a lot of people think about writing a book or a memoir and often do not do it. I'd say 99% of people out there just do not write a book, and we're going to talk about today how you can overcome those challenges of maybe writer's block or procrastination that may come up for you when it comes to writing a book. So before we chat with our special guest today, Jacqx, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Now, Jacqx was actually born in France and migrated to Australia when she was 5 years of age. She grew up speaking French to her father and Spanish to her mother. So when she came to Australia, it was a shock to have to learn a new language. Once she mastered the English language, she found she had a gift for telling stories. She said the teacher made her read her stories out in front of the class, and at the time she didn't understand why. She thought maybe they wanted her to practice her English. Jacqx also loved acting, and in her early 20s she worked in small roles on film, television and theatre through her Sydney agent. She moved away from Sydney to the mid-north coast in her late 20s to start a family, worked at NBN and Prime Television on a casual basis and started teaching drama. Frustrated at not being able to find any Australian plays for her students, she wrote her own so her drama students could compete in the annual Theatre Festival and Eisteddfods. To her surprise, the plays were all really well received and won awards, and she was encouraged to have them published. Later in 2005, she was commissioned to write 4 educational books for Ready Ed Publications. This was Lights, Camera, Action series and introductions to filmmaking and theatre production. In 2002, Jacqx founded Jacqx Enterprises, formerly Jack of all trades, master of writing. She offered professional writing and editing services for small businesses. Then in 2012, she completed a Master of Arts degree in writing and literature from Deakin University and now has several publications, including stage plays, educational books, poetry, short films, and film scripts. Jacqx has reinvented herself a number of times as opportunities arose and is currently working on her first novel, Rogues and Vagabonds, based on vaudeville performers who toured regional Victoria during the Great Depression. She works as an editor and writing coach to assist people to document their memoir. She's heard so many incredible stories over the years and finds that most people procrastinate about documenting their story. These stories will be lost forever if they are not written down. People don't realize that their experiences will be valuable for generations to come. So much you've achieved there, Jacqx. Welcome to Media Queen TV.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic to have you here today. Of course, it is a big issue where people procrastinate about writing a book, and a book can seem like a really big project, and they say everything is hard until it becomes easy. And I think like the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's probably, one strategy you'll share today is how you can break down the whole concept of writing your memoir or putting your book together. Hello, Julie. Great to see you. I know Julie has been doing her book and has been spending quite a bit of time on that. So great to have you here, Julie. If you have any questions, those who are watching right now, whether you're on Media Queen TV on YouTube or on Facebook, please pop them into the chat and we will come to you, any questions at all. And where are you from watching this? We know Julie's from the Gold Coast, as we are. We're both on the Gold Coast here in Queensland in Australia. Where are you watching from right now? Just pop into the chat. And do you have a memoir that you've put out or a book that you've put out, or are you currently writing one? So, Jacqx, what an amazing journey you've had in the whole entertainment industry. What are some of the highlights that you've had with your whole writing career?
My highlights, I love people's stories. Mostly I love true stories. And part of writing my novel, Rogues and Vagabonds, you kind of people think, oh, who's going to want to know my story? What's the point of writing my story? It's valuable information that a writer needs to research. So when I'm researching, say, for example, my book, my book spans from the late 1920s to early 1940s. So it's a really you know, long time to sort of cover. I've had to read many, many books to be able to research what that era was like. The reason I'm passionate about true stories and people writing their stories is because it might not seem important now, but when you write your story, generations down the track, people are reading that to get information about what it was like back then. So, for example, my writing journey, I think you covered it. I sort of jumped a little bit. I covered it as trying to find plays for my drama students at the time, and all I could find was American plays and UK plays from the UK. Not a lot about Australian plays. So when you write, you then create something that's going to go down in history. You've got an Australian play. I had Australian themes with mine as well. But going back to why I like people's true stories is when, just say, for example, you pass away, you go to a funeral, and people give a eulogy about that person. Well, that's their view of that person's life. You didn't get the chance, or that person didn't get the chance to express his life, how he lived it. Especially as, I mean, people think procrastination, as you said, is the biggest thing. They said, oh, we'll do it later. There might not be a later, first off. But secondly, once you get to an age where it just becomes just too big, which it is big. But if you don't write these things down, even if it's in a diary or any form of writing things down, those stories are lost forever. And we're talking about stories. Every writer, when they research, has to look back on, if they're doing a historical novel, for example, like I was, on what it was like back in those days. So the importance of documenting that might not seem important to you now, but of documenting that means that I get valuable information by reading your story when I'm researching what that era was like. And I would not have known. I wasn't born then, so I wouldn't have known, as far as my story is concerned, I wouldn't have known what life was like then. And you kind of can't assume, or you can't make it up when you're writing something that's based on that era. So one example for me was because of my novel being set way back, I tried to interview as many people as I could that were elderly. Interview it like film interview, because if you just write it down, you're not going to be able to write down and listen at the same time. So when I film it, I can go back and remember things that they said that I might not have picked up later on. And it's valuable. One example I'm going to give you for my novel, because it is based on entertainment, vaudeville entertainment. Even though I've started way back, late 20s, as I said, Hugh Stuckey was one person that I interviewed. And I'm not sure if you remember who Hugh Stuckey was. He was a screenwriter and producer for Australian television way back when it first started. And he worked on so many shows like, and I'm just trying to think, Neighbours. Oh, well, if you go way back, he started way back working Australian TV. But as his career progressed, he was on Country Practice, Home and Away, Restless Years, Blue Heelers. He then went to US, and he had credits in the US with The Lucy Show, I Dream of Jeannie, The Flying Nun, Bewitched, Andy Griffith. Huge. When I interviewed him, this was way back in 2012 when I interviewed him, and he was saying, because I was encouraging, you've got to write your book because you've got all this valuable information in your head, and if you don't write it down, because I was picking his brains, obviously, even though my book covered before that. At the time I started writing my book, I was going to go right into the Australian television history, but anyway, that's another story. He said to me, I am writing a book. And yes. He said, I don't want to tell you too much because then you're going to, know all this, and I want my book to be out there. So I said, well, look, that's great. I can't wait to read it. About I think it was about 3 years later, I contacted him and how's the book coming along? Because obviously I like to know information. These are things that it was really, really hard for me to find information on Australian entertainment history. And he's saying, oh, yes, it's still going, not quite there yet. And I'm thinking, oh, come on, write it, because it's such valuable information. And about, when was it? It was about, would have been either late 2017 or early 2018. I'm not quite sure exactly. But he contacted me just out of the blue. He rang me up and he said, look, this book, I haven't finished it, but will you be interested in getting it out there? And I said, yes, of course, I'd love to. So he said, all right, I'm going to email you the manuscript. And then I waited and waited. I thought he might be tweaking. I later found out that he passed away in 2018. Oh. So his book has not been released. Hopefully his family will release it, somehow get around to releasing it. But such valuable information. He had such a massive career, such success. And, that opportunity was gone for him to actually see that book out there. It would have been wonderful. So that's one example of what I'm saying, procrastination and the value of it, because obviously I'm picking people's brains about needing information to write my own book and understand what the era was like. And you are preserving history. So if you think of our lives, all of us, when we write something down, we're preserving history. And anyway, we can get on to the topic of how to start the memoir if you like. But that's one of the really, really important reasons why I think people should write down their memoirs. And there's also different things that I wanted to cover today, because I had a few topics that I'd written down. And one of them is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? It might not be, Hugh, yes, he had a successful career, but your life is just as important, because you might have some amazing skills that you can share with people. Might not necessarily mean that you write a book on your memoir. You might want to write a book because you are just the most awesome cook, and you want to write like a recipe book of all these family recipes that have just gone through the generations, which is something that I did myself for my family, just recipes from, all these different grandparents and just all these different recipes, and turned it into I wished I'd have got it now, Aldwyn, to show you my recipe book. But that's one thing. Another thing, you might have gone through an experience that nobody else has. It could be anything. A memoir could be just even how you made it. Just say you were a dancer, or you started a business. How did you do it from the ground up? Teach us how you did it, how the obstacles that you overcame. It's just so important. It's just so valuable. People who have overcome awful abuse or situations, how did they feel going through that, and how did they get through? Really valuable information. And it's not just other people that want to read your stories, because most people think, oh, who's going to read it? My family, friends. But it's other people, especially writers, actually, is really important, because you need to understand, as a writer, I haven't experienced a million things. So I have to rely on people, either interviewing people, reading their books, or reading, research. Research is the key to good and convincing writing. So that's why I encourage people. That's the reason. But anyway, to put your story together, if you want to go down that path of the topics that I had down,
sure.
Think about, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Who do you want to write this for? Is it for commercial purposes? You want to write a book so you want to be able to sell it because you think it's got great information that's going to be of value to people and they're going to want to buy the book? Or do you just want to make it a little personal family memoir? It's just as important, because I'll give you another example. My parents have now both passed away. My father passed away 25 years ago, and my mother passed away last January. That generation they didn't speak about things. They just, they just kept it all bottled up, and whatever happened, you just move on with life. So I have no idea about their stories. I have really no idea about what it was like for them. I mean, my dad was born in Casablanca in Morocco. So, French, it was all French speaking, all the rest of it. But all these stories that I've missed out on. And so even if you don't want to write it for the whole world to see, pass it on to your family. Pass on things that you've learned, experiences that you've learned. My dad was in the Algerian War, so I have no idea what that was all about from his eyes. It's a different thing to read it in history, like people write, oh, yeah, this is what happened, but not through that person's eyes. What did they see? What did they experience? That is what is most valuable.
Yes.
And
and everyone has a different perspective, right? On the same.
We won't go about the fake news, but
well, that's right. Everyone has a different perspective on the news of the times at the moment. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And, you can only really decipher from the information you're given, whether it's online or offline, and what research you do. You can come to your own decisions as to what you think the truth is of what's going on right now, and the truth of any situation, in fact, of any, relationship, any communication you have with someone else. You can only come to it with your own filters. We all have our own filters and judgments of any situation. And I guess doing a memoir and doing a book is coming from your experience. It's sharing your experience. It may not be the truth, but it's the truth to you, right? This is your truth. And
that's right.
And it's so
Which
important.
The topic of research. Research is very important because if you rely just on memory, you will forget things. And I started a diary, I suppose you could call it, when I was 11. Writing so much, and then it got to A4 book, so I used to write and write. When I read back on it now, I'm like, who is this person? Because you really do forget a lot. So if you're going to research, for example, if you're going to write a memoir at a time where you might have experienced a war, what I recommend is to look through the newspaper clippings to find out as much information as you can to refresh that memory, because sometimes you get dates wrong if you rely just on memory. And that's, again, why I said it's a good idea if you're going to interview someone to film them, because you're going to forget, or you're going to write it down wrong, or things aren't going to be accurate. So when you're going to write a memoir, research the time. And with my book, for example, I'm not going to put all that research that I found in my book, but I have to understand the era. I have to understand how people survived, how they were able to keep a troop going during that time, and they bartered and all the rest of it. But research is just so that you've got your facts right, and I can't just put down that they did such and such when that might not have existed. So I have to research it. So working together with not just your memory, but also if it was in a time or an era where you're not quite remembering accuracy of it, newspaper clippings were there, and there's a government website called Trove, and it allows you to research heaps and heaps of newspapers that have been scanned. So that's been a very valuable piece of information for me for research. Also, when I recommend with a memoir, if you're going to, obviously memoirs will include people in your family or friends. When you interview them, don't tell them that you're interviewing all these people. Just let them speak freely about their point of view of how they saw things. That way you get a better connection with, how it seemed. Obviously, as you said, your truth might not be somebody else's truth, but to be fair, you interview people and they get to really have their say how they saw things. Does that make sense?
I think that's great, particularly with family members. Now, if you have family members that are aging and maybe very sick and they may not have much time left on the planet, something you can do is interview those family members. Like I know my uncle is very sick at the moment in Sydney, and normally we go visit him every year from the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast with my parents. And this last year we haven't gone down there, but hopefully we'll go and see him. And he's really not well. He's got a lot of illnesses at the moment. He's in his mid-80s, and we're really worried that we may not have much time left with him. So, getting some interviews down, even if we do it, through Skype with his, he's not that great with technology, but, somehow getting those interviews down, whether it's online or whether it's even by phone, just capturing the audio if you can, or video is even better if you can capture video, because you can always transcribe it later, right? You can always get the words out of the video or the audio. So it's really great thing to do to capture those memories of the family before people pass, because every time someone dies, a whole library goes with them, right? And I just want to do a shout out. Hello, Joylene. Good to see you. I know Joylene's also an author. Hello, Adrian. Good to see you there. And Julie, where are you coming to us from, Julie? We can see you from the Gold Coast. Whereabouts are you watching this right now? And do you have a book that you've written, or are you writing a book? Just pop into the chat there. Love to hear from you wherever you are watching this. So that's a great tip there, Jacqx, about doing interviews with people to get the facts from the past, and also interview people in your family if you want to capture some of your family story as well.
And also photographs are a great trigger. So if you want to start off with your photographs, it's good to try and help put it in a chronological order, but photographs will trigger memories. And if you show someone a photograph and say, what do you remember from this photograph? Then that's a good little story as it is too. Yes. Another thing also, I think some people, writing a memoir should never be a revenge type thing where you're going to have your say about, getting even with someone. It should always be fair. It should always be not a point of attack, for example. You've got to also be careful of defamation. But when there are sensitive things, I think, with family stories, for example, you might want to decide to make it into a fictional story, a novel as such. So you're kind of disguising what happened. You've still got the facts there, you're still telling the story, but you might want to disguise that as a fictional story. That's another way to get around things too. Food for thought.
Yes, that's great. Joylene's just messaged here. I published my autobiography, Broken Past Heals Dreams, in June 2020. Congratulations, Joylene. That's awesome. Well done.
I did read Joylene's book. It's a very good book. And actually Joylene probably doesn't realise that there was some information in her book that helped with my research. And I think it was when she was touring, she used to go around in a caravan, and she said about the Kool-Aid that they used to, put a Hessian bag in. Simple things like that might mean absolutely nothing to most people. I thought that's what I needed, to know how, because when I was writing my book, I had to question everything like, well, how did they wash their costumes? How did they keep their food cold? All these things. So this is one thing that Joylene would never have thought about being a vital piece of information for me, but that helped me. And this is another reason, again, why I love to read people's stories, especially true stories. So just going through, I know I'm sort of all over the place with my topics, but laying out chapters, do another start to lay out chapters. I think photographs are a good starting point, because then you start to think about things. But chapters, the story has to be engaging as well. That's important. When you go to a party and you meet someone and they sort of corner you and they start telling you everything about their life, and some feel like saying, stop, because just get to the point. So it's important. I mean, this is where an editor comes in as well, because then we can just narrow down, just get the story moving, just get it streamlined, only keep things simple. So technique is when you lay out your photographs, lay out your chapters too. Make the chapters, the title of your chapters, a really catchy title, because that's going to intrigue people. When you flick through a book and you think, oh, I can't wait to get to that bit. So you read it. So it's really important to start with, think of catchy chapter titles that are going to intrigue someone. And also when you're writing, I mean, not everybody is skilled writers, which is where I come along to help that process. So as an editor, people think we just do the spelling and grammar and fix it all up as far as that's concerned. But we do a lot more. We actually look at story structure, cutting down things that aren't important, you know, that information just really doesn't need to be there because it's all over the place. And there's a lot to it, really. I mean, there's different types of editors. And then right at the end, you need to get it all proofread for that as well. But with your chapters, start with a really intriguing sentence or just even the first paragraph. Make it really intriguing so people just think, oh, I've got to read this. I want to find out what happens here. And then end the chapter with another something really intriguing. So they don't want to put the book down. They want to know what happens in the next chapter. So catchy titles with each chapter and catchy those first paragraphs. So it gives this enticing, oh, this is what's going to happen in this chapter, and it keeps it flowing, because you want your book to be entertaining and you want people to want to keep, you know, not just read it once but read it over and over. So that's another little tip.
That's a great tip. And just on that point, I find, you know, they say 50% of anything you do is just starting. Now, as a journalist for years, you know, there were times that we were pumping out, you know, 10,000 words a week. I mean, I could have done a book a week with the amount of stories. At one point at the Sun newspapers, I was doing 30 stories a week. And I found often one of the hardest things to do was just getting started. And once I just came up with a good start and I just flowed from there, it was much easier. Once you just get on a roll with it, you start and get on a roll with it, and this leads to that, leads to this, leads to that, right? And it just flows. And I find often my best writing would happen when the words just flowed, and it made it a much more enjoyable experience for me when it did flow. And sometimes there were times when I was stopped and I'd sort of walk away and come back to it, and it would flow again. And I find if you can flow when you're writing, I find that when people are reading, they also go with the flow of it. And that's when people say, you know, it's hard to put a book down, because you can tell with some stories where people have been in flow when they've been writing those stories, that you are also in flow when you're reading those stories. So it has that ripple effect of being fantastic for the reader as well as the writer when you are in flow, as opposed to disjointed stories.
Very good tip, very good point. And it is important. And it's not easy, but this is what I don't want people to stress out, because I've had a few comments of like, oh, no, I can't do that. I can't write. It's, you know, that's not my thing. It doesn't have to be your thing. You just have to just write down the stories, even, you know, go by point and write it down. Don't worry so much about making it this masterpiece. That's where an editor comes in and helps you fix that up. You know.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. And don't worry about it being perfect, right? Don't let perfection get in the way of
and then they go, oh, I can't write because I'm terrible at spelling and grammar. I'm terrible at all that.
Yes. Now, Julie says
that stop you.
Yes, exactly. Don't let that stop you. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. You can always get an editor to go over things and you know, bring some more flow to it if you're feeling stuck. Now, beautiful Julie says she's in bigger waters. Welcome, Julie. I'm still working on dysfunctional effects of long-term family abuse, on the book about that. I'm still deciding to go fiction or non-fiction. Flying Out of the Cuckoo Nest. Flying Out of the Cuckoo Nest is the name of her book. And Julie is saying, thanks, Jacqx. Great info. Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for your comments.
To Julie, and I think, yes, it's really, really intriguing story. And I've had clients who have written their story. It might have been a story of abuse, and they've also had little how they got through it section. Like there's like at the end of the chapter, there's these tips on how they got through it and things that they learnt. So you could structure your book in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to, like, there's lots of creative ways to make this book happen, whether, as I said, one of them was turn it into a fictional book. Another one could be a little self-help book where at the end, this is what I've been through and this is what I learnt from it. Because especially if you've suffered things as a child, you don't know how to process that until you're an adult. So when you're an adult, you can look back at that child and then when you've written your book, you say, this is what I'd learned, so that this is what I wished had happened, or the direction. So because the next person reading it, the person reading that will then get something from it. So nothing is wasted. We all go through great times and we all go through terrible times in our life. And this is another thing that I think is important when you're writing your book. Social media gives this impression that we all have these wonderful lives and you all have these snapshots of happy, smiley snapshots where everything's wonderful. That's not the truth of what our everyday life is. And people tend to hide it. They think, oh, I don't want to discuss that because they're going to have this opinion of me, or there's this shame about what's happened that you don't want to discuss. There's so much courage in opening up and saying, this is how I survived this. Some people aren't comfortable with sharing all that, and you don't have to share it to a huge extreme, but you can just think of, look, the very last tip I'd had, which I've kind of jumped a little bit, but the last and most important thing is when you're writing your book, it should be about the reader. It's your gift to the reader. Your book should be your gift to the reader. This is what I learned, and I want to give this experience to you to maybe help you in your life's journey if you're going through something similar. Because we are attracted to books. We want to find answers. And when we're looking at a book and we're reading the title first jumps at us, and then we read the back blurb, we choose books that we have a connection to, that we want something from it. The reason we'll go and buy a book is because we want to get that information. We want to understand what's happened. So your book, think about it as, shouldn't be about you, should be about your gift to the reader. This is, I've suffered this, and it was a terrible time in my life, but this is what I've learned from it, and this is the gift I'm giving to you, that you will get through these tough times. You will get through whatever it is that you want to write about. It might be a fantastic, happy book too. Don't have to be all sad sack books. It might be how you became this prima ballerina. How did you get there? You started at 3, and people look at these people's successes and they don't realize the absolute hard work and dedication it took, whether it's an Olympic swimmer or an athlete, anything like that. They just think that there's these immediate successes, and it wasn't the case. So it's so important to say, well, this is what I had to go through to get to that point. It wasn't an overnight success. It was years and years and years of discipline, getting up early, my body aching from working so hard. These are things that are so valuable to help other people. Starting a business, you had this idea, and all that came your way was obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And people either give up or they go, no, this is how I got through it. This is how I solved these problems. This is how, in the end, I built this amazing business that has helped so many people. And then you document that as well. There's so many reasons. There's so many reasons to write your things down. You might have gone through wartime. What we read and your voice, your story is really important. I read a book recently about a North Korean, someone who escaped North Korea. And it shocked me, absolutely shocked me, because she was born in 1993. That's the same age as my firstborn. I was looking at some era, like from ages ago. They were living in such awful conditions. It really opened my eyes. I had no idea. Imagine, I feel like, you feel like a dummy sometimes. How can you not realize what these people are suffering in these countries and what it's really like there? Because the picture painted of North Korea that the world that they want the world to see is not what's reality of what's happening there. I know we all know that there's oppression there, but not to the extent. Having read this book, it was just mind blowing. It just shocked me. So it's so valuable. Again, I'll just say why it's so valuable. Now, also another tip of what's really important: getting through the tough stuff. I think you've got to be careful with when you have to write about things that have been really painful in your life. You need to feel comfortable that you can do that. I think if you're not comfortable, might not be the right time. And this is why a lot of people start books and then they put it aside for a bit, because they got stuck in this hard emotional time that they haven't processed yet. Writing, another excellent reason why you should write a memoir. It's incredibly therapeutic. And as I mentioned before, I started writing. I think the fact that when I started school, I couldn't speak English. Once I started to learn English, and I found that writing would really help me get my emotions sorted. I didn't know I was in a bad mood, or I didn't know why, I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I'd start writing and it would all come out. So it's incredibly therapeutic. So to be able to express yourself through the word, and when you write, don't think about it, just write from the heart, just really go for it, and just write from the heart. Let out what's bothering you, or let out what it is that's got you stuck. Because if you're stuck, it means there's a problem there that you're resisting trying to get to the bottom of that, because it's too scary, it's too hard. So getting the tough stuff. If you're not ready, then you're not ready. I recommend just take a break, leave it for a bit. Or you don't have to you can just get through it in a more graceful way, where you don't have to get into the depths of that time. You can just get through it in a more graceful way. But it is tough. But the thing is, honesty, writing from the heart, is where you'll really grab that reader. You'll really get them to want to invest in your book and invest in you, because you've touched a nerve with them as well. So again, it's very therapeutic, but writing from the heart, extremely important. Finding a good editor is really important too.
Yes, and what to look for. How do you know a good editor?
Well, look, there's editors I might not be the right editor for everyone. You have to know that you can work really well with someone. And I think usually when someone approaches me, we have a bit of a phone interview. We see if we click, if we see if there's this real vibe between us, that yes, there's this, because you have to have trust. You have to trust that your editor is going to work really well with you. You need to have that trust basis, because it's very personal. What you're writing is really personal. But it is important. I mean, your friends, if you just write a book and then you give it to your friends and family, they're just going to go, oh, yes, that's lovely, and tell you what, you want to hear, or they're going to rip it to shreds or criticize, and then you crush your dreams of ever publishing that or going any further with it. So you need to work with a professional that's detached from your family and everything else. It's just there to make that book the very best book it can be. So with it's really important. And you know what, I just love the people I work with. It's so rewarding, and it just means that things that they might not have been able to see, I kind of draw them out and go, well, how about this? How about we start it here? Or you've missed something here. So you kind of get them to put it together in a way that's going to be the very best book it can be before it goes to get published.
Yeah,
so
nice.
That's really important.
I like that. I like that trust factor.
Yeah.
And in saying that, I've had some people edit some of my work. Like, I've done quite a few chapter books. I think I'm in about 9 chapter books now, where I've done a chapter, and there's other business people have done chapters which are more, I did chapters about how to get free publicity. Other people did different things. And I must say, sometimes some editors have come in and totally changed the way that I have done my chapter. And I must say, it's been a very frustrating experience. And I have basically gone back to my previous edit and said, do not change it, because this is in my language, And so everyone has their own ways of doing things, right? And sometimes some editors will come in and they'll change it and it doesn't sound like you anymore, right? So, yeah, it's really important, I think, to be able to write in a way that it reflects the way you would speak or the way that you actually are, and not change it so that it sounds like someone completely different. That is not the point of editing, right? And editors, I guess with editing, there's proofreading, there's checking for flow, there's checking for repeated content, there's checking for there's a lot that goes into editing, and it does take a fair bit of time, and you want someone who really knows what they're doing there and also still retains the authenticity of the voice that is coming through in how you actually write, which is reflected often in how you speak as well. And I'm curious, with everyone who's watching this right now, what has been the process for you if you have written a book, or if you're writing a book? What has it been like for you? And are there any tips that you can share with us in the chat of what has helped you in your writing process? Please pop into the chat. I'd love to hear from you, or any questions you have for Jacqx as we're going along here. Thank you, Jacqx. Back to you with some great tips.
I was just going to point out also the difference with writing coach and editor. Writing coach, sometimes people send you a manuscript and you can see it's nowhere near ready, not ready for editing yet. There's still a lot of work to be done. So as a means of helping them through that process, like you said, it's very important that you don't take over someone's book in your own voice and make it, different. You have to respect that person's style of speaking. You have to respect how that person writes. But as a writing coach, you might sort of say, okay, you've missed this part. You give them a list of this is what needs to be done. So it might be something that we covered today, like, for example, okay, we need to set these chapters out. The chapters are all over the place, or, your opening. So you give them tips on how to improve that. So they're basically going back, doing the work themselves, still in their own voice, and we get it to that stage where then there's a final edit. Because some people just have information dump. They're not sure how to do it. They're not writers, so it's very overwhelming for them. So all they've done is just put in a whole lot of information, might be all over the place. It's good also to have some dialogue, just lots of different things to make that book a lot better. So that's the writing coach process is, I have no idea what I'm doing, information dump here, and then you guide them through how to start to make it look like a book. And then that final stage is that editing stage. So just in case anyone was wondering about that writing coach section.
Yes.
Title, sorry.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, that's great.
Do we have any questions? I'm just trying to think if I've missed any.
Any questions from anyone, or anyone want to share any wisdom of what's helped you in your writing process, or what are you challenged with writing currently? I know it can be a really tedious process as well. It can be something that can go on. And I know that I've certainly procrastinated in this area with putting my own book out, and I do plan to put my own book out at some point in the future. And I know it's something I've kind of put on the back burner. I thought, I'll get to that, get to that one day. But the fact is, if you don't actually make time for it and do it in bite-sized chunks, then it's just never going to happen, right? So you do need to prioritize it, and you need to have deadlines, right, Jacqx? So how do you go about, when you do a book, how do you go about keeping yourself on track and keeping the forward progress happening, even at times when you don't feel like doing it?
You can't wait until you feel like doing it, because then you'll never do it. So you have to set time, and whether you're a morning person, night person, however it is, set time and make it be really strict. If you have to set a reminder on your phone or whatever, set time, whether you can set, even if it's an hour, even if it's half an hour, it'll click you, and then that half an hour might turn into a couple of hours. But you have to set aside, and if you can't do it every day, you've got to be very strict and say, this is my writing day, or this is my writing time. And you need to have a writing space. You lock yourself away in your writing space. You tell everyone, do not disturb. You switch off your phone. You don't look at social media. You don't look at anything. This is my writing time. And it's really important to have that writing space and to have that block set of time, because then I mean, everyone makes time to go to the gym or to do whatever it is they do. It's really important if you want to finish the project, which is going to take a while. Don't be too hard on yourself, because it's not a quick couple of months it's done, unless you're really amazing. I mean, I've had some people that are very fast workers and they just present it and it's, it is done quickly. Others usually takes, it could take years. But the thing is that you've set some time to do it, to write. And if you do feel blocked, then look at some photographs, or look at, it has to be all related to your book. Look at things, listen to songs. This is another thing I really like, is the songs of the era as well, that bring memories. How we have these connections to certain things. Read, even if you can't write, read something that will inspire to move your story on. But you need to be disciplined, really, really disciplined, and take it seriously. Like, this is important, because this is something that's going to stay for years and years and years. And if you want to make it a commercial book that you want to have out on the market, you're going to have that there for generations to come. And also, I mean, usually you get a return on your investment too. You think of, it's such a big project, why should I bother doing it? The rewards are amazing. And in some cases, I've seen clients that have it's completely changed their life, because then they've gone on to do speaking engagements, or they use their book. Their book might be for business purposes, and they might be speakers, so they also have that book as part of a sales product that they use for their business. There's lots of different reasons to write the book. It's going to stay there for such a long time. That's the exciting bit. Personally, I think that's the exciting bit. When I first started writing, this is the thing, my journey was a little bit all over the place, which is just me. That's why my name used to be Jack of all trades, master of writing, because I was trying to do everything. So I first started, my published books were back in 2005, but they're still there, and I'm still getting, like, you still get royalties. There's still a legacy that I've left behind. I'm really wanting to finish my novel now, because it's been quite a while since I've written my own thing. I've been helping other people, and I've been doing other things and workshops and other things as well. But this is going to be something, think of it as it's important. It's a legacy that you're going to leave behind. It's a way that people can really see the true you, so that at a funeral, people aren't going to be sitting there saying, or ask yourself, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? Are they going to be their version of you, or it's going to be your version because you've written it down and you said, hey, this is my life experience. This is who I truly am. Warts and all, because we're not perfect. Yes. We all have our dark side. We all have our moments where we were, little horrors when we were younger, and drove our parents nuts with our rebellion, all these things that we did that, we look back now and think, but it happens. I mean, my kids, I'm sure they used to think that I was born an adult and didn't have no idea what it was like to be young. But, the one thing actually I did do, I remember one time my daughter was going through this rebellious stage, and I showed her one of the diaries that I did, the Big Foolscap diary, and I'm not, it's an eye-opener for them to think, oh, wow, I had no idea that you experienced this or what you were like. They just think you're just a mum. That's it. You're born a mum. You don't know anything else in life. So it's just so incredibly valuable. Even if you don't want to publish for the world to see, write it down for your kids. It really will help them. It really will open their eyes and see you as a person, see you as who you really are and your life's experiences.
Yes, That's right. If you don't share it, we don't know, right? So really great. And, you know, a lot of people are pumping out instructional how-to books nowadays, and they're doing audios and then getting that transcribed online. Now, I must say, I don't like that style. And I know you can do it very quickly. You can just speak something out and then put it into a chapter. But I find that very difficult. I guess as a photojournalist, I find typing things down and seeing the words in front of me, I like to work that way. So do you find that, Jacqx, do you find a lot of people similar to that they don't like to actually just speak a book out as opposed to actually write it? Or are you finding that people, you're finding doing more of that?
Anyone speaking a book out, because personally, I couldn't think. See, the way I process things is through the writing. I don't think it would be the same when we speak differently to how we write.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. Now, we've got some great comments and questions coming in. Francis, hello, good to see you there. Now, Francis says, I'm just about ready to send my book to my publisher now. I've started and finished another couple of manuscripts. I set time and have a daily ritual to write or edit or just write ideas down. That's excellent, Francis. And Francis asks, she says, great information. And what do you charge for editing? Good question, Francis.
That's all depending on your level of how your manuscript is. So what I'd recommend is you email me, contact me through my website is jacqx.com. I have a look then at the manuscript. Some people are excellent writers and it's like they don't need a lot of work on their manuscript because they've polished it. My recommendation is always try and polish to the point where you think this is the best I can get it, and then send it to me. I can have a look because I can think this doesn't need a lot of work. So it's all going to be depending on how much work's involved to getting that to a really good level ready for publication, which sounds like yours already is. And others are just like the writing coach kicks in then because it's like, no, it's not ready yet. It's going to take a lot more work. And it could, like I've worked with a few people that's taken years. It's taken a while because, so it depends. That's not a question I can just pop up. But definitely send me your manuscript. Might not need much work at all. It might need a fair bit of work still. So,
so how long is your standard book, like either a memoir or a how-to book? How many words would you recommend, Jacqx?
I would say about 70 to 80,000 words.
Okay, 70 for a memoir.
Yes, I
memoir.
think.
Okay.
70,000.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of how-to books. I know they're doing around the 30,000 words, which is interesting. So, and some editors actually charge on the number of words. So some may do it that way. So can you give a sort of ballpark, roughly, say for a 30,000 word, a how-to type book? What would a rough charge of and there's editors, of course, but what kind of scale, what price range would people be looking at for, say, a 30,000 word book?
30,000 isn't a lot. That's quite a short and sweet book. Again, it's hard because I'm trying to work with people's budgets. So if we work around that, we're looking at 30,000. I haven't actually done a 30,000 because mine were normally a lot bigger, and that's like really quite a short and quick book. Yeah, I'd rather not say. I'd rather just have someone email me, and then I can work it from there.
Okay, so it'll vary whoever you go to, Francis, obviously on that one. And you obviously want to feel comfortable with your editor. You want someone who knows what they're doing, and you still want to retain your voice in that editing process. So it's definitely worth reaching out. I've actually put jacqx.com in there here. So you can see that on Media Queen TV, on YouTube. And if it's not there on Facebook, we'll make sure we share that. Good questions there.
Read the comment.
Thank you so much. Now, Julie is saying, great info, Jacqx, on editing. I need help with spelling, dictation, grammar, and flow. I contacted Jacqx. She gave me great tips. I am with a self-publishing company. I feel I need Jacqx to finish. Okay, great ideas, writing time, Once I get started, I never want to stop, Julie says. Good on you, Julie. That's awesome. So Julie's feeling that she needs you to help finish, even though she's with a self-publishing company. And this is the thing, is a lot of people do buy these packages with self-publishing companies and then find that often these companies may fall short on certain areas, or they're not happy with how these companies are dealing with certain things such as editing, for example, also, certain parts of the process. So, so what are your thoughts on that one, Jacqx?
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, she's saying, Julie's saying she's actually with a self-publishing company at the moment, and she feels that she needs you to finish. She needs help with spelling, dictation, grammar, and flow. And she's had some great tips talking to you in the past. And I was talking a bit about the frustration some people have that I've heard in my circles, obviously helping people get publicity. A lot of people I work with are authors, they are speakers, and I hear a lot of stories about people who buy packages through a publishing company and then they're not happy with certain parts of that process, even though they might have paid for it or paid for some elements. They're not happy with, the editors that they're given. And some of these companies are real mass production and they don't have the quality, editors that you may want for your book. Someone obviously like Jacqx has been in the game a long time. You know what you're dealing with, as opposed to someone outsourcing to the Philippines with someone who's probably never done a book, and they're mass producing like a word factory. That's a whole other ball game. So I guess, it's horses for courses on that one. So what are your thoughts on that, going with a self-publishing company that might offer a package to do a whole lot of stuff for 20 grand or whatever it is? Some of them charge big prices, right?
Yeah.
And they include editing in the process, and they include a cover design, and they include all these things, and maybe a certain number of copies of the book. What are your suggestions for people who might be looking to go that way? What are some things that they need to be careful of?
That's a tough one, because they've spent all this money, and then I think, well, then they've got to pay to have it, and they're not happy with it. I would say try and get them to, you've already paid for it, try and get them to satisfy what you're wanting. I don't outsource any of my work. It's just me, so I have limited clients that I can take on at any one time, because it's just me. So with me, I don't outsource. It's only me. I have the discussion with you. We discuss what your expectations are. We have that personal relationship where we're actually talking. It's a tough one, because I don't like to say dump those that you've signed up for them, and I don't try and steal people away from something that they've already committed to as far as packages. So I'm not really sure how to answer that, Aldwyn. It's up to them if they're not happy, and they can ask for a different editor. Otherwise, it does get costly when then you've just paid for something and you have to get somebody else to do it again. But
yeah, I would be asking too, when you look to buy these packages, ask exactly who are you going to be dealing with? Who are the editors that you're dealing with? What kind of experience do they have? What kind of experience do the people who are selling these packages have? Do you like the quality of their work? Check some of their work out. There's publishers and there's publishers, right? And the thing is with books too, is that often people don't make money directly from the book. I mean, unless you're doing like the Harry Potter series, which even J.K. Rowling, for a long time, she didn't make money, right? And then Harry Potter took off. But a lot of the times people use a book as a marketing tool if they're using it in business, and they often will make money from the programs associated with the book. So it's often from the back end of products. So a lot of people now are giving books away, or they're using it as a lead generator for business. So it's important to not get too hung up on making money from the book. You are definitely leaving a legacy with every book you put out there, because even the how-to books, people share their personal stories in there, even if it's just a chapter on their personal story. Often in the how-to books, the instructional books, often we hear a little bit about the author, right? So every book is leaving a legacy.
I think you can get a return on your investment with your book, but you will need to market your book. So you need to be aware that if you decide to self-publish, then see the difference with self-publishing and traditional publishing is if you self-publish, then you have to promote your book. So you have to go out there and do the sales, and you will get your money back in that regard if you do market it And there's something you can market for years. It doesn't all have to happen in the first 2 weeks it's released. This could be continuing on for years. The traditional publisher going down that route is, for example, some clients have preferred not to do traditional publisher only because that could take another year or more before before the book's actually released. There's the good side and the bad side to that. The good side is, the bad side is you've got to wait so long to have your book released. The good side is they do all the marketing for you. They do all the promoting, the distribution. They have all those connections. They have massive ways of distributing your book worldwide. So that takes a load off. Yes, you make less money because you're making a commission, but if you weigh up, okay, I'm self-publishing, so I'll make the full amount of the book, like it's my 100% profit on the book, but you have to do all the marketing. If you don't have the big distribution channels, if you don't have the huge followers, for example, that will buy your book, and maybe if you're not famous, then it's going to be tough. So you're better off earning a little bit with a traditional publisher, and they can sell a lot more of your books. It's something to think about. So there's just another thing that you need to have a think about. There's pros and cons to everything. If you're not up to, some people, like I've had clients that, they might be elderly and there's no way they're going to be able to market and do all the big, push for their books. But some have had success because they have been invited to speak because their book has made an impact. And this is where you come in, Aldwyn, too, because you can get people the publicity of the news and things like that, and that can just really launch their book for them. And so I've had clients where they've made their money back plus more. They've done really well from it. So it can be, it's the important thing is don't get too caught up on making millions of dollars. At least if you get your money back or you're leaving that legacy, that's really important too. You might decide, look, we're just going to do this amongst our family and all the family members who are going to contribute to write, having a chapter or writing in the book. They might want to contribute the funds to just have this published as a personal thing for the family. And you never know where that could go as well, because that story might be interesting, might take off itself. You just never know.
Yes.
But get hung up too much. Books are a product. You've created a product and it is something you can sell. So therefore you have a product that you can sell, and it's there for years. You can keep doing print runs. I mean, it's easy now because there's print on demand where you can do a print run of, say, 500 books. And then if you've sold that, you do another print run of 500 books, and then you can continue to do it that way. But keep in mind that you do need to promote the book. So it just depends. There's so many different ways. It's a little bit hard to cover it all in just this short time, but there's so many different avenues for then releasing your book. And it's there forever, and you've left behind a legacy. I mean, people go out and buy a brand new car and it'll cost them $40,000, $50,000 for a brand new car. That car's gone. That money's gone. You're never going to get that back. You've got a car, but that's not a legacy. This is not saying that your book's going to cost you that much, but you have now worked on a product that is your legacy that's going to be there for a very long time.
Yes. So anyone can buy a car. Not everyone can share your story. And it's interesting, so many books that I've been involved with, you can go over your chapter or your book so many times, and then you have proofreaders look at it and editors look at it. And even after all that, you may still find that the book gets published and there could well be some errors in it. Again, do not stress about it. Most people I talk to, they have errors in their book even after they come out. And so they do second editions and third editions. And some people even challenge people to check all the errors in the book, and they offer prizes and things like that. So, it's never going to be perfect exactly as you want it, right? You can just keep...
Make it clear right up. I don't proofread. I make it up in my contract that you need to get a proofreader right at the end, because it just is very time consuming, and proofreaders can work at a different hourly rate where that's the final thing that happens before a book goes out. And as you said, Aldwyn, yes, there's always a little error here and there. It's not the end of the world.
Yes.
But so I don't proofread. you know.
Yeah,
So
got it. Whereas I'm actually a very good proofreader. I'm very particular with that, having journalistic background.
Correct. Oh, it's a horror. Sometimes I look back, I've auto-corrected. I haven't really checked it. And I've written something. Oh, you know.
Well, there's things like autocorrect won't pick up all the different theirs. For example, there THEIR or THERE or THEY''re. There's so many different ways to say there in the context of that sentence. The proof spell check will not pick up the context that there is used in that sentence. You know,
or English. American like. Yes. COLOR instead of OCOLUR, or finalize the Z instead of an S. There's different, So
yes, exactly.
I help people to look awesome. To like, my job is I want to make that book the very best it can be.
Yes.
When you present it out there, so people are just going to love it and think, oh wow, this is a great, exciting book. So that's what my focus is let's make this book the very best it can be. Let's let it shine. This is your time in this book. Let's make it the very best. And sometimes it's hard because some people just think, oh, I'm sure they want to stab me in the eye with a pen, because it's like, this is a good thing for my job. I can work with people all over the place through emails. I don't have to be face to face. So if they want to kill me, I'm not there. So.
Yes, it can be a really frustrating process.
I go, okay, I didn't understand at the time why you were making me go down that direction, but I understand now, and I'm very grateful because I see where you were headed with that. Because my thoughts are, let's make your audience as big as possible. So if your topic is about a certain subject, let's make it appeal to as big an audience as possible, because we want to know about you as the human being, how you got to that. And there's a way of attracting, of getting people to relate to you by things that might have happened in your life. And so they start to warm to you and think, oh, okay, you know, I quite like this person and I'm going to invest reading that whole story. So look, there's reasons behind my madness, why I do things sometimes. Trust, again, you need to trust your editor, and that's why I do have interviews with people beforehand. I just have phone interviews and we have a chat to see if it's really going to work out well, and you know, we have that connection and that good vibe.
Yes, and it can be like, you know, coaches sometimes can be really frustrating. You know, coaches tell you things sometimes you don't want to hear. However, it is for the greater good. It is for your own good. Often coaches see things that you don't see because you're often too close to your own story. Literally, you're too close to what you do. So that's where, you know, great coaches need coaches as well. You know, I have multiple mentors in my life, and I have had for years, and I will continue to have great people around me who are urging me on and who are encouraging me and who are pointing out sometimes their suggestions for how I could improve on things. There's always, you know, great to have feedback, you know, with people around you, and particularly people who know what they're talking about in the industry. I just want to share from Frances here. She says, this is a great live. Thank you. I'm very excited about writing and starting my new career. Thank you for your encouragement. You're most welcome, Frances. That is awesome. Well done. Now, Frances says, I was very lucky as I had 5 publishing offers, and my publisher asked me to contact another international bestseller, and he actually sent me some very detailed ideas and told me I had a great book that would be commercially viable. While writing, I have met some incredible people and gained so much experience through the writing process. That is brilliant. And that's the thing. Once you have the experience, you don't unhave the experience, right? So once you hear the story, you don't unhear the story. Once you've got it, you've got it, which is awesome. So it's like building your muscle in writing. Once you do one book, you then can work on your next, or do a whole book series, right? As a lot of people are doing now. Now, Julie here, she has a question. Do you need an agent to do traditional marketing? Do you need an agent? What are your thoughts on that one, Jacqx?
There's publishing houses that have you can submit without an agent. I think it's like every publishing house has a different that one was called Friday pitch. So on maybe the Friday of the first Friday of the month or something. I can't remember because I haven't got the list of all the publishers and what they have. But if you go to their website and you look on submissions, you can submit without an agent. And look, if you want to make your writing your career, then it's good to try and look for a literary agent, because some people only have one book in them. They just want to put their memoir and they've just got the one book with them. But the publishing houses do have that. You can submit without an agent, unsolicited manuscripts, and go through that way, go through the back door and see what happens that way. And look, don't give up. I would say try that first. If you haven't got success, you might want to consider self-publishing. It just depends. But have an editor look at it and maybe give you a bit of an advice. I try and help. I try and help people. I give them those links and where to go to submit their manuscripts. And then I also do little interviews or clips for them just to help them promote their book as well. I mean, you want to me, it's not just I've done my work, see you later, never hear from you again. I want to keep that relationship going. I want to help people to succeed with that book if that's what they want, if they're wanting to have as a big deal, like they really want to make a career out of it. Some people just want to write that one book because there might have been something that they needed to set the record straight. There's lots of different reasons why people want to write the book, but it depends. If you don't want writing to be your career, you just want to get this one book out, don't worry so much about a literary agent. Just try and go through the submissions through the different publishing houses.
And marketing is 80% of anything you do. So marketing is really crucial. And I would definitely, even if you have an agent, I would not be relying on your agent to do all your marketing. You need to hustle. You need to hustle in life, right? You need to hustle, particularly in business. You need to be out there. You need to be on social media, actively out there, looking for speaking gigs. I've sold a lot of books at speaking gigs. Most times when I do speaking gigs, people want a bit of you to take home, and now even with online speaking gigs, right, there's lots you can do where you could offer packages. If you're doing professional speaking, you could offer packages which involve, that the promoter buys a certain number of your books that gives to every one of the participants, for example, if there's online conferences and things like that. There's lots of different ways that you can market yourself. Free publicity is incredibly powerful. I have a free event actually coming up on Saturday called Free Publicity Secrets. It's a full-day free event. So much information on there. If you do want free publicity, highly underutilized strategy for getting free publicity, getting marketing, getting on TV, radio, print, etc., then check out Free Publicity Secrets. I'll pop the link actually in the chat here as well. If you'd like to come along 9 till 5 Australian Eastern Standard Time, that will be. And make sure, get out there and learn about these things. And or if you've got the money to outsource it completely to a PR professional, then do that, or PR agent, or, and then there's Facebook ads you can do. There's so many different ways you can get publicity and get yourself out there. There's podcasts you can approach. There's over 1 million podcasts just in America alone. There's online TV shows like this where you could be interviewed about your book, right? So it's a matter of reaching out to people and sharing what you do so they know what you're doing, and present yourself in a professional manner that they will want to interview you. Now, Francis says, good question there, Julie. Julie says, thank you. Francis says, not many people can get total traditional publishing these days. It depends on the books they are interested in, and some do not accept unsolicited manuscripts without a literary agent. Okay, interesting, Francis. Okay, so traditional publishing is definitely not as popular, I'd say, as it once was. I think a lot more people are self-publishing nowadays. And that is a very interesting.
You have to do research there's no point approaching a publishing house that does science fiction books if your book is about self-help or something like that. So do your research so you're not wasting time don't just send it off to everybody and hope that, do your research and find out. So look, publishers are out there. They might not be looking at your book. There's no point. For example, when Harry Potter came out, I get people sending me manuscripts of, similar to Harry Potter, and I said, I didn't take it on because I thought, well, the market's saturated. If books like what's that other one that these books are already out there, there's no point to writing another Harry Potter type book or another Star Wars type book. You've got to come up with something creative. But we're talking about fictional books as well, memoirs. If there's something unique about all of us. If you've got an angle that's of interest, and you know this, Aldwyn, because this is what you teach, is when you put publicity, what's your point of, what's your angle? What's something that's going to grasp someone's attention? So if someone has, if you've got a million, go to bookshops too and see what is out there. So if you've got a whole heap of books about, overcoming drug addiction, your memoir then that might not be the time. This might not be the time to release your book, or you might want to release it as a self-published, or you might have an angle at it that's really quite unique. So you've got to you've got to do research. You have to understand what is out there, what books are out there already. So, you're putting your same old book is not going to be helpful to you. You need to find an angle that's interesting. Like my book's all about, for example, how I overcame drug abuse, but you did it in a holistic way or something. You've got to come at an angle that hasn't been already written.
That's right. And the thing is that your X factor is your story. Okay, so no one has your story. So just in you sharing your story, even if the topic you're talking about is maybe a little bit similar to what some other people have talked about, they're bringing their perspective and slant to it. And no doubt you would have a different perspective in some areas than other people in that industry. So people are going to want your book because they like you, they trust you, they gel with you, they connect with you, as opposed to others in your industry. So it's always worth putting yourself out there, and just notice when that imposter syndrome comes in and says, you're not good enough, or who are you to speak up on this topic, or, whatever it is. And if it's your memoir, of course, what's your story that you could share. So now, Frances.
No, Aldwyn, is really important that you do have to work with professionals. So once done, you have to get a professional cover designer, an editor. You have to make it look professional. Trying to do your own cover, it's not a good idea. It's not going to help. Sorry, you had a question.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Frances, thank you for all these comments. Frances, yes, research is very important. I looked up over 50 publishers and had to find the right one. You must read their guidelines. That's what I take notice of, and what I've learned on the way. Yeah, beautiful, Frances. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Absolutely. Do your research with anyone you want to work with, actually, not just publishers, just with anyone you want to do business with or want to work with in some way. Definitely, Google people, check them out, or DuckDuckGo them. Google's censoring a lot of information lately, and so is Facebook. So, look up the alternative media channels too, I recommend. So, Jacqx, we can just keep on chatting here. Is there any points you had on your list there that you want to cover before we wrap up our interview today?
I'm sorry, but I have to keep putting my glasses on because I can't see.
That's okay. And any other questions, pop them in the chat there. We're planning to go for about an hour, but
I'm going to put a little memoir. I'm going to put it into a little ebook type, so it's available for everyone, just all the topics, because I sort of jumped around with the topics a little bit today. I get a little bit carried away and get excited, so I'm jumping all over the place. So that will be available on my website, jacqx.com.
Okay.
And any questions, just email me, info@jacqx.com.
Yeah, excellent. I'll pop that in the chat as well, info@jacqx.com. Any questions for Jacqx there? Or if you want something mentioned now on the live, be quick, pop into the chat. Any final questions, comments? What have you got out of this today? What are you going to do differently moving forward from what you've learned today? Any ahas today? Please do share in the chat. Love to hear from you. Jacqx, any final words from you?
I'm very excited that there are so many people out there wanting to write their memoirs, because it's really, really important, and it's great. I'm just very thankful that I get to work with some pretty awesome people. And yeah, I'd just like to encourage you, really like to encourage you and inspire you that your story is important. And it doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be a huge book. You might be an expert knitter and have done these amazing things, and you might want a little coffee type books or something of photographs, projects. Like, you could share anything with people and just have it as this beautiful memoir. Be creative. Think of something different. I like to think of something different sometimes to bring out. It doesn't have to be just a book type thing. It could be more of a picture book with your tips or things that you've done, just skills that you've learnt that you want to pass on. Look, it's exciting. It's limitless. Be creative. Be bold. Don't be afraid. This is your legacy.
Yeah, and you might actually find once you start, it's actually not as hard as you thought it was. You know, sometimes with things that we procrastinate around, sometimes there's such big issues in our own head that once we start to do it, you know, all the times we're worried about it, we could have actually done the thing by the time we, you know, all that time we worried about it. So, you know, so just get started, take action, and you'll find, you know, anything's hard until it becomes easy. So just be patient with yourself in the process, be kind to yourself, acknowledge yourself as you have some achievements, as you maybe finish a chapter or as you even start, you know, acknowledge yourself and reward yourself on the journey as well. Ginny says, thanks, Jacqx and Aldwyn. Our pleasure. Ginny, thank you so much. Julie says, thank you. Thank you both. I'll contact Jacqx in the future. Thank you, Aldwyn. You are always amazing. Oh, thank you, Julie. Love your work. Thank you, Julie. Lots of love to you. Beautiful lady. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you, everyone watching this. Thank you. Please pop what did you get out of it into the comments. Francis says, thank you for today. I really enjoyed listening. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed to Media Queen TV yet, please do so. There's over 550 videos on there, interviews like this and other amazing content. The Global Good News Challenge continues. That's something I launched in June 2020 in the height of COVID because I was sick of seeing all the negative news, as you probably are as well at this point. You've probably had quite enough of all that. Thank you very much. In which case, if you want to be the change you want to see in the world, then join in the Global Good News Challenge. We have different challenges every month. And just check out the Facebook page, Global Good News Challenge Facebook page. And pinned to the top of the page is all details on how to get involved. You just share your name, what you do, 3 things you're grateful for, and a piece of good news as a Facebook Live on your profile or in the Loving Life group, hashtag Global Good News Challenge. And the next one is coming up from the 1st to the 5th of February, 2021. Okay, 1st to 5th of February, 5-day challenge, easy peasy. Anyone can do it. It takes about 3 minutes. And it's amazing how you feel when you share gratitude, because love and gratitude are the highest vibrations we will feel on the planet. The highest vibrations. The more you can get into that with everything you do, the more opportunities you will attract to yourself, and the more that you will just rock on in life and have an amazing life. Okay, and of course, we've got Free Publicity Secrets coming up on Saturday, Brisbane time, 9 till 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Free event. I've popped the link into the chat there. I'll pop the Global Good News link in here as well. And we've got Joylene. Hello, Joylene. Love finally getting to see another session. Well done, Jacqx. Loved your session and fab info. Beautiful, Joylene. Thank you so much. You're amazing as well. Love your work. So I'm just going to get into the Global Good News Challenge. I'll just pop that link into the chat there for anyone who wants to join in on that. And of course, the Free Publicity Secrets. Check that out as well. And it's freeprSecrets.com is the website for that. Global Good News Challenge. Now, we have a page and a group. Now, everyone who does a Global Good News Challenge, I'm actually going to add them for free into our private group as well, so you get extra support in there as well. Okay, so here is the Global Good News Challenge page. So earmark that one for February 1 till 5. You can do your challenge. Start your challenge anytime within those 5 days. Love to see you do that. And also, I do recommend get along to Free Publicity Secrets if you can on Saturday. Now, with Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, when he appeared on Oprah the 27th of April 2000, 3 years after he released Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he appeared on Oprah 1 hour after that show finished, that 1 hour show with Oprah, the interview. Oprah turned to him and said, "Congratulations, Rich Dad. We have just sold you 1 million books." Now, at the time, Robert was making $5 US per book. That's $5 million at the end of the 1 hour show. And, you know, that's Oprah. Of course, that's big media. However, you know, start somewhere. Even getting into your local media, you're reaching hundreds of thousands of people. So please use publicity in your marketing mix to get your books out there and to reach more people and to leave more of a legacy and build your fame, fortune, and your freedom, and impact your whole family as well, because people learn more from what you do than what you say, right? So be the example, be the change. And any final words, Jacqx? It's been fantastic hearing you today on this interview. Any final
on? All these are in, but I think no, we must come to an end.
Maybe we'll do a second interview at some point and follow on from this one, because we did have some, great interest there and great comments and questions. So thank you so much. Joylene says another great session. Aldwyn, thank you, Joylene. Thank you so much. Francis says today was super amazing. I feel blessed and grateful. That's beautiful, Francis. Well, I certainly feel blessed and grateful for having Jacqx here in the room and for having you watch this wherever you're watching this right now, whether it's Media Queen TV on YouTube or if you're watching it on Facebook. Please pop your comments. What did you get out of it today? So you can cement those learnings. What's just one thing you're going to take away maybe and do differently from here? Or what is one aha that you got from this interview that you can share in the chat? And if you do have any questions, please pop them in the comments too, because we will be monitoring that. And you can also email Jacqx directly. We've got info@jacqx.com or jacqx.com, JACQX.com. Okay, make sure you get that spelling right, JACQX.com. And, of course, you can connect with me too on aaxpose.com or just Google Aldwyn Altuney. I'm all over social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, even on TikTok, although I don't do a lot on TikTok, but I am on there. And, and YouTube, of course, Media Queen TV. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you have a great story to share, reach out. And love to chat with you there as well. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to be with you today. And lots of love. Mwah. Love to you all. Thank you again. If you like what you've seen, share the love. Like, comment, love, share the love so that more people can learn from the wisdom from today's interview. Aldwyn Altuney signing out today. And Francis just popped another comment in there. Let's share that one, which is I'm editing my second book and getting it ready to send to an editor. Definitely looking you up and subscribing. Brilliant, Francis. Good work. Media Queen TV on YouTube. Love you to go on there. I've got some phenomenal interviews there with some extraordinary people. I think you'll love it. There's hours and hours of entertainment and information on Media Queen TV on YouTube. So, love you to connect on there too, Francis. Thank you so much. And please keep those comments and the love coming, and we will see you again soon. Remember to shine bright and light up all those around you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jacqx. Bye for now.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. It was so nice to meet you. Not meet you, but meet you.
Yeah, to meet you. Thank you so much. Bye for